YouTube, we are back for the attack of Flash Comics 78. And this upload may be a big one. I don't know if I'm going to break it up in two parts or not, but we're going to leaf cast this first wrap of the book. Now, last upload, I believe I showed the pulp that I made. So this is the first pulp that I made. I think I showed you how I put it on the glass and dry it on my oil burner. So this pulp dried out nice, and the color is not to my liking. So I want to explain how I do this. What I do is I will make the pulp, and when you make the pulp, you always want to start light. Like when you're mixing paint, if you're doing an oil painting or anything like that, you always want to start with light and bring down and get darker. So this was the first color that I made. I didn't like it. So then I made a second casting, and still I did not like it. And the way I make it is I add various forms of different paper colors. I soak it for a few days, and then I actually take the pieces that I soaked, put it in the blender, I blend it, and then we tested it. So I don't like that color. So I did a third color. I didn't like that color as well. It needed to be darker. So I did a fourth color. Now the fourth color I was sort of happy with because it did match pretty well. I still didn't like it. So I did a fifth color. I went darker. And I am happy with the fifth color. So this is the color, and I have enough to do all of the interior of the book. This is the money color right here. So I'm happy with that. And as I've done in the past, what I do is I take notes as to each one of the colors so I can replicate it, because the papers I use to make the pulp are the papers that I like to use now. I can pretty much make any shade of brown with 2 or 3 different types of paper. So this is the key color right here. I think it blends. Is it perfect? No, you're not going to get it perfect. But what I'm going to do when I leaf cast it, it's going to blend in beautiful. So what else am I going to do? Well, I really thought long and hard about the texture of the casting when I leaf cast, and I want to try to make it smoother. And with Mike, Night Tiger Comics, Captain Arrow, I modified it by using Hollytex, and it did smooth out a little bit better than using Ramay paper, but I think I can do better. And I learned of a process by studying Kenny Sanderson's pictures, and I think I learned how to make the cast smoother. It's a combination, studying his pictures as well as a mistake, or actually a cleaning process that I did when I was cleaning my leaf casting table. And when I was cleaning my leaf casting table, it was plastic underneath. It's a plastic tub, and I pulled up the leaf casting that deposited on the bottom of the leaf casting table, which was on the plastic, and the pulp was smooth as anything. So I think that in addition to using the Ramay, when I dry it, I'm going to have to remove the Ramay and the Hollytex, and I'm going to encase or sandwich, still wet, the wrap in plexiglass. And I do have a piece of plexiglass that I bought from the art supply store, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it with this wrap. So let me get the leaf casting table ready. This is going to be a long one. Sorry if I'm babbling, but let's get going. And before we get going, I have to take measurements, so let's do that before we start leaf casting. Okay, guys, we're back. And right here is the interior of the Flash 78. I'm very happy that all of the wraps are connected, and there's going to be very little leaf casting involved. So the way I want to do this first is I want to do a measurement for the width of this laid flat, because this is going to give us at least sort of a guide how we want to fill in the spine. So we're going to do two measurements. I'm going to do one measurement with the plain ruler, just like this, and we're looking about 14.5, okay? So let's write that down, 14.5, right to left, 14.5. So I want to also do a measurement when the book is folded. And I think that's also an important measurement. So what we'll do is we'll fold it. Okay, staples are still intact. That's pretty cool. And we're going to take my wife's garment ruler. Don't tell her I have it. She's been asking for it recently. And I don't say I have it. I do that once in a while. I steal things from her, or don't steal, I borrow things from her. So let's wrap this around. Okay. And we're going to see when the book is folded what the measurement is. Because there is, I think, more length that develops when it's folded. So right here, it's about 14.5 and 2 lines, okay? So what I'm gonna do is 14.5 and 2 lines. I like to use simple terms when I do measurements, and I know they're eighths and things like that, but when I do any woodwork or things of that nature where I measure, I do 4.5 plus 2, or 4, or 14 plus 2. I always add the lines or the eighths being 2 or 3, how many lines there are. I'm sure someone maybe will say that's silly, but I'm a silly guy, and I like to be silly sometimes. So we're going to do it 14.5 plus 2. That is going to be our measurement for the leaf casting, and I'm going to set it up. And let's leaf cast this baby. Okay, guys, we are back for another upload. Or actually, not another upload. It's a continuation of the previous upload in relation to Flash Comics 78. We're going to leaf cast this page now. Before we do so, last segment, I measured it, and I said it was 14.5. plus 2 eighths, or 2 lines as I like to call them, but I was wrong because I looked at it closer with my glasses and it was actually 14.25. So I want to do a few things, because before we leaf cast it I have to do some modifications. This is the grate that I use for the leaf casting table, and I noticed watching Kenny Sanderson's video or upload on Instagram when he did leaf casting, his grate was very rigid. I think I need more suction to make a better product when I do the leaf casting. So in the past, when I put my foam around, when I leaf casted, the suction of my table would pull down the grate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify it. I'm going to put 2 more legs in the center so the suction cannot suck it down. And these are toilet seat hinge bolts. So you can get these at Home Depot. They're very inexpensive, and this is what I use for the grates. And when I said before that I'm going to show you how to do leaf casting without the suction table. I believe this grate and these bolts are going to be needed in order to do it. So the grate is a basic grate for lights in Home Depot section, in the Home Depot lighting section. Actually, it's not in the lighting section, it's in the drop ceiling section. And these grates are used for fluorescent lights in drop ceilings, and you're gonna have to cut them to shape. So this is an essential part of what you're gonna need to do. It's actually not essential, but it should be purchased if you want to do leaf casting without the suction table. So that's pretty good. We're going to have more support, just like that. So now when I actually put the foam craft around, the leaf casting pulp will be sucked in better. And I think this is going to up the game in relation to the end result. So what I want to do after we put this bolt on, where we are going to get the actual page or wrap ready for leaf casting. So let me just put this to the side for now, and let me get a wee pad. And I'm running low, so I'm gonna have to go to Costco and pick up another box. They are inexpensive as well, and they really help the process. So let's put the table now on the wee pad. Bear with me for a second. I just want to check the camera for your viewing pleasure to make sure that it's all coming up on the screen, and it is. Okay, so there we go. We have our grate, and I'm gonna prep the wrap on the grate for the leaf casting. This is a piece of Ramay. It's fine. I'm not using Hollytex because I'm being lazy, and I don't want to cut a piece because, as I mentioned in the beginning of this upload, I am going to actually use a different method in order to smooth out the pulp, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's put this nicely right there. And the grates are good because you can use the horizontal lines to make sure that both of the pages, if you're dealing with a book that has a separated spine, are even. So we need to make this 14 1/4 plus 2. That is the goal. So let's just get a basic measurement here. Right off of, let's do this section. So where we need to bring that in significantly. So let's bring it in a little bit more, and we'll play around with it because this is very important to get this correct, the size, because you don't want it to be off because it will mess up the whole project. We need to bring that in a tiny bit more. And it's a slow process, but it's a fun process once it's done correctly. And every single time I'm doing this, guys, I am definitely getting better and better. So this may be a little boring right now to watch. So that looks like it's pretty good. I like what I'm looking at. So that's 14 1/4 plus 2. That will give me some wiggle room. Let's see how the bottom is. And remember, the leaf casting is going to fill in a lot of voids. So that's pretty good. I'm liking what I am looking at. I think I just moved it, silly Jerry. Let's make sure. Let's do another measurement. 14 and plus 2, that's good. So I'm happy. I'm happy with the way it looks right now. So what are we gonna do next? What we're gonna do is I am going to try to flatten this out as best as possible. And the way to do that is I am going to give it a sprinkle of water. And that's why we need the wee pad. And as you see right now, it is buckling a little bit. So I'm gonna put a piece of Holly Tex on top so I can take my hand and smooth it out, and we'll wet it, and then we will let it really get wet. We'll let it soak in, and then we'll flatten it out before we do the leaf casting. Let's give it more water. And that's why, guys, you need the wee pad underneath, because that is keeping everything dry. Because I do have some comic books underneath my workbench, and we don't want, we don't want water dripping down. Okay, so what do we have here? It looks like we are nice and wet, and it's definitely penetrating. I don't like this right here. I don't like how this is flipping up here with the Reme and the Holly Tex. It's not something that I like because of the new toilet seat bolts that I put in. I don't want that there because that may impact when I do the leaf casting. So I'm gonna cut that away. We're gonna cut it away and we're gonna get rid of it. Just like that. And look how strong this is, because this is a relatively new razor blade, and it just shows how strong this Holly Tex is, with a razor blade having a difficulty cutting it. Plus, I'm not on a flat surface. If I did that on a flat surface, it would have cut better. So that's good enough. Usually I don't like cutting the Holly Tex like that. I like to cut it straight, so it's nice and straight when I do the leaf casting, but you have to improvise sometimes, like I just did. Okay, so what we have right now, we're gonna let this sit for a little bit so it relaxes. When I say relaxes, I want it to relax flat. So when we do the leaf casting, there's no movement. We'll wet it some more. And let's give one last measurement when we have it in sandwich between the Holly Tex. So 14. Now I see right here, this side is a little bit more. This is about 14 and a quarter plus 2 plus 3. And then this one is 14 and a quarter plus 3 as well. So it is a little bigger than I would want it. So I'm gonna try to move it over at least one of the wraps, just a hair. And the question is, should I do it? Because wet paper, as you know, is weak paper. I think I'm fine. I'm gonna leave it because a little bigger is okay. It will give me more room to wiggle. And I honestly think, to be honest, that when the paper gets wet, and I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think when the paper gets wet, it expands. It's obvious that the fibers absorb water, and then it gets swells, and it may expand a little bit. Maybe there's someone out there who will tell me whether that is sort of accurate. I think it is. Let's put this to the side. Now what we're gonna do is I have my paper pulp here, and let's take a look at it. This is the paper pulp. So what I wanna do is I wanna mix this up. This has been in my refrigerator and I can tell it's separated. We're gonna mix it up now for a little bit, and I'm gonna do it for about a minute, 50 seconds. And then after we mix it, we're gonna get the leaf casting table ready. So I'm gonna shut the camera off, get the leaf casting table ready, and we'll get ready to roll. So I'm gonna put this on and I'll see you shortly.